All right, perfect. So we're working hips and glutes, hip flexors, all that stuff today as our main stretch. To start with, just to get things warmed up, we're going to do some basic air squats and some Cossack squats side to side just to get things warm. And then we're going to actually go into some glute stretching. And then we'll go into a little bit of down dog work and speed it up through some star plank and all that. And then we'll go into some hip flexor stretching. So we're getting a little bit of everything today with some activity and then some longer holds. Then we'll do some activity and some longer holds. So not a full flow today, a little bit more like a cross between what people might know of as like a yin style yoga where it's a long hold, but instead of doing 2 to 3 minute holds on each side, we're still only doing about a minute per side because that's a really long time to sit and suffer and hold. And you can totally do that. Some people love it. I like kind of a hybrid. So that's what we're doing today. So let's go ahead and start with 10 nice, slow, controlled. I want you to put extra focus on splaying the feet and then pressing them into the ground and air squat. And I'm okay with if you only get towards like 90 degrees for the first few and don't break hip crease, that's fine if it means that you're keeping the feet engaged on the floor. We're just getting warm. And when we engage our feet and really torque through, we end up getting a little more heat through the hip and we notice what's tight versus letting it collapse out. Good. And then we're going to do some Cossack squats. So Cossack squats are the wider set ones. Some of you might be able to go deeper than others. I have Angie is pulled up, so hopefully the recording gets my whole screen where it has me and some of the other people. If you can see Angie, she probably goes a little bit deeper than I do, but both of them work, but you're making sure that as you sit down and back, you're pushing your glutes back, you're keeping your knee out to the side, and that you're not collapsing inward, right? Knees pushed out, sitting back, speed skater style. You can, if you need to, let that leg come up a little bit, that foot, so you don't strain your hamstring or your adductors. You can deepen it as you get further into it, sink down lower. I don't want that heel coming off the ground on that bent knee side. Making sure that you're only going as low as you can keep it on the ground. Let's go 3 more to each side. Da, da, da. 1 more. Perfect. Okay. And then we're going to do a couple of bootstrappers. I think bootstrapper is what it's called. I end up saying bootlegger all the time. Okay. So you're going to put hands on the feet. You can grip the toes. I do that to help. Some people can grip around the ankles. That's fine. And you're just going to go down. It doesn't have to be a perfect squat. You're going to go down and then up. And you don't have to lock out the quad. Go from this side too. Down and then up. So it doesn't have to be a perfect squat. Just trying to get stuff warm before we sit and stretch it. Latoya is ready to jump in, Zeke. I think she likes stretching and lazy days better than CrossFit days. I think that's more her jam. So you guys are done with 10 of those ones. Go ahead and take it down to the ground. So we're going to start out being upright with this runner stretch. Okay, so from the angle, looks like this. You're going to find this spot, and I want you to just kind of play into it. We're going to hold this. And then as you're doing it, I kind of add a little activity. I rock back and forth. 1, I get really bored trying to hold a stretch. And 2, I notice I finally start to relax. I'm not over my back. I'm arching backward. I want to add a little stretch to that hip flexor, arm up and over. Again, I'm not reaching back with it. I'm going up and over as I sink through. So play around with that. And I add a little bit of that rock position. That's up to you guys, but keep holding. You got another 30 seconds. And it'll feel kind of boring, kind of like a long time. But again, not nearly as bad as some of those yin classes where you'll sit for 3 minutes in a stretch. I'm awful at those. Or if you do ROM whatever, they're great. their purpose, really not mine. I would much rather spend 3 minutes doing burpees than sitting in one stretch. How sad. Starting a little bit of a feeling of discomfort.
Hey Danielle, will you mute yourself because you're taken away from Austin's sound?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, important. I say important things. Go ahead and switch sides, guys. So probably got a little uncomfortable by the end, or almost maybe hopefully for some of you felt a little fatiguing by the end of holding that, and that's totally fine. That's what we want, and I want you to feel like you're starting to sink in. So you're switching to the other side again, upright, not arching back, and I kind of move mine around. I move in and out a little. I move forward and back. I squeeze my butt, and then I relax it, and then sometimes again, if I want to get a little more hip flexor, I reach up and over. I don't arch back to do it. Right. And again, hold that as long as you want. Hands can be out here. You can hold still and calm your mind if you want. You can rock through it if you're like me, and calming your mind ain't what I'm doing mobility for today. It's just up to you. Another 30 seconds. Almost done. All right, go ahead and get out of that one. Go back to the first leg. We're going to drop into pigeon. This is one that people have done a lot of. So some people can get their leg all the way kind of to 90 degrees. If you can or want to, go for it. If you are not someone who's really ever done it up and out at this angle, be really mindful and keep in touch with your knee. If it's starting to bug you or feel like it's torquing too much on the outside, you don't need to have it at that 90-degree angle. Okay, we're going for getting this area stretched out and getting the hips set down and neutral. Okay, the best that you can. So don't worry as much about where your leg is, but if you feel like you need to deepen the stretch and you can already sit your butt all the way to the ground, go ahead and take that knee out, that foot out. So when I say sitting down to the ground, you'll notice I have quite a bit of space between mine. The way that my hips are set up, my tension, whatever it is, I'm not touching the ground. There are some people that can touch the ground here. If holding this position for you is uncomfortable and really tight, you can always put a bolster or pillow right under here to kind of take some of the edge off so you can relax into this position. For me, I'm so tight that I don't hit the ground, but it also doesn't hurt. It's kind of used to it. So it's up to you. But what I am making sure to do is not open my hips up to compensate. Instead, I lean into it, square off my shoulders, square off my hips, and sink in. We're just spending some time here. If you can or you want to, you can come down onto your elbows, right? If you're really awesome and flexible, I think people can see it. I don't know if Angie's able to like go forehead towards the ground. I'm not sure. She's pretty flexy. Yep, there she goes. Her head completely went off screen. That shows you she's getting all the way down there. That's totally fine too. So if you really want to get down, so that's where I am with mine. But in order to do that for me, I pull up. So it's a little bit more like kind of cheating the stretch and not keeping it into the purpose that I want, but up to you. If you want to feel like you're getting more stretch through the back, that's fine. A little bit longer here, guys. Just letting yourself sit in it. You can always turn around into the stretch, whatever you feel like you need. You can sink, you can just lay. It's whatever feels good to you. And mentally pushing you to actually just feel the tightness, be with it, be present with it. Play with LaToya during. I love this. This is like the most entertaining mobility session ever. And then carefully come up and out of it, and let's switch to the other side for that pigeon. And go back to watching LaToya. Thanks, Angie. You're a good demo for us because you're more flexible than me. So it's nice for people to get to see the options. And you'll notice too with Angie's versus with me, her foot's even up a little higher than mine too because she's able to get some of that position, right? Zeke is actually up fairly level with his as well, if you can see that and aren't just watching the cat, versus mine is a little further back. And that's just where we're at, you know, play around with it. You can always put your knee further out to the side if that's where you're feeling your torsion or torque. Just be mindful of not straining something, trying to get a stretch. And hang out here. We got another 30 seconds of just hanging in this stretch. And watching Latoya. And Zeke. I mean, we're watching Zeke too, I swear. But mostly for his interactions with Latoya. And again, if you want, for the last little bit, if you want to turn and lean or walk out of it a little or sink and rock the pelvis so that you're dropping it down, whatever you feel you need to do. All right, go ahead and come on out of that one. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna do another little thing to warm up and heat some of the hamstrings and a little bit more of the glute, but also to release the low back. We're gonna do some, they're called star planks in some cases. I'm also used to star plank being a side plank. So whatever you want, they're toe touches. Angie, you'll have to remind me maybe after I do these ones what we call them, because I can't remember if we have a name for them. Since you guys have such clever names like Chad. But it's where you're up kind of in a down dog type position from a plank. So you'll be in a plank and then you reach and you cross tap the other side foot while you kind of push yourself up into that stretch. So I don't know if we had a name for those that we'd call them. Again, if you looked up star planks or things like that, sometimes that'll come up on Google if you're ever wondering.
I don't think we had a name for those. We've only had them like once or twice, and I honestly don't know what we called them.
I want to make sure I wasn't like misappropriating a name or not remembering an obvious one.
Yeah.
So
I think they were like up, down, dog, toe touches.
Yeah,
or
like
something.
right? They're a weird one, but we'll call them opposite toe touches from a plank for now. But if you look up star plank touches or something, that might show up if you ever wanted to reference this. So let's go do 10 touches a side and be nice and controlled. Again, this isn't weight loading and it shouldn't strain anything. So if you let go a little through the middle to stretch, that's fine. If you want to go up even at the top and do a bit of an extension, you totally can. Up to you. And yes, I did say 10 per side, so 20 touches total. It adds up. It's going to get you nice and warm. You're welcome. And again, you can do those slower if you want to. You can do them faster. Sometimes you can like sink in and stretch through it. Up to you. When you're done, we're going to go into some down dog hold, just a little bit. And when you do that, you're going to really think about making this active so that you're really pushing through your hands up through your shoulders, stretching in. If you need to, like me, I have to bend my knees a little bit. You can try and pedal your heels towards the ground to get a little bit of a stretch. So go ahead and hold, rock through that, really push up through the arms. Danielle likes this one, I can tell. Gets a nice stretch on her legs, I'm sure. And then let's go ahead, come to the bottom into a prone press up hold. So just to hold, letting your heart rate settle again and sinking through. You can relax your butt a little, really think about stretching those hip flexors down. I kind of rock side to side from hip flexor to hip flexor, up to you guys. Just letting your heart rate calm. If you're like me in a very sweaty, hot room that the windows were closed all morning, you might need to breathe a little heavier. Perfect. And then go ahead and come up out of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do that figure 4 style hold, but in a way that is a fun modifier. Instead of just gripping and trying to crunch in, it really allows you to relax your back on the floor and push into something else to help increase the stretch. So I'm going to go like this so you can see the side of my armoire with what I'm doing. Don't worry too much about what my top half is doing. I'm just laying on the ground. So I know you can't see my head, but you can see this, okay? So while I'm on here, so if you have a wall or even just a couch or something, you're gonna be doing this kind of a push. So what you'll do is you'll do your figure 4, right? And then you're gonna deepen it by just coming up onto the toe. I barely have to do anything. I don't have to reach forward. I don't have to arch my back. I don't have to use my muscles to pull in. So I could lay here with my arms just out to the side and deepen that stretch without any extra effort, no craning of my neck, no straining of my abs. I can really make it all about that glute stretch. So what it looks like from the other side is figure 4. And then you'll notice I don't actually get this side out as far. So maybe I want to use my extra hand on this side to deepen the rotation. And then I can still push up onto that toe to increase the stretch that I'm getting here. So go ahead and pick a side and you can hold that toe up. Again, I'm using my elbow on this side to keep it out. I can mentally try to rotate it out, but I use my arm a little so I can be comfortable. And then you can hold. If you want to pulse like I am, that's fine too. Or you can just hold and really think about breathing in, breathing out, and pushing that glute area down to the ground, letting your back be relaxed, letting your neck be relaxed, and really just using this other leg to put that stretch intensity on. It's a lot more relaxed version of a figure 4. It's super simple. And if you have a wall around you or something to push off of, you can get more out of it specifically for the glute. Now, if you're really flexible, you might need to get closer to the wall, right? So you might need to get all the way up here to get the basis of your stretch. You'll notice for me, I'm clearly not that flexible because my back's coming off the ground, but pretend I am. From here up, I'm increasing how sharp this angle is so that then when I push, I'm really getting a good stretch. But for me and my mobility, being at about 90 degrees allows me to keep my butt kind of on the ground. I can push out with this hand, everything else gets to relax down, and then I can deepen it. So let's go ahead and switch sides. I love this one. When people will try and do figure 4, they reach around and try to pull in. I feel like I'm working harder than I am getting a stretch, and or having to work really hard to get the stretch. So I'm so tensed up by it that I don't relax into and deepen that stretch. I like that I get to relax, my neck is comfortable, my low back is flat, and that I'm really stretching the glute on that side, and then that I can deepen it with such little effort from the other foot. So hopefully you guys find this one kind of nice and helpful that you can hang out. And gives you an easier way if you struggle with mobility to get a good stretch out of that figure 4. Go for 15 more seconds here. And go ahead and carefully rest and come out of it. Okay, this time we're gonna do something that still stretches that side, but also a little bit of the low back. It gets a little rotational work in. So you're gonna put one foot, you can pick whichever one you want to start with. I'm gonna move this back to straight so that my armoire isn't getting more attention than me. So you're gonna put that heel up towards the other side and up towards your kind of groin area, whichever comfort level you have. If you can only get to here, that's fine, but in as far as you can, really trying to get up. So I take my hand, I scoop it under my glute muscles and just my butt. That's not probably all muscle, though I wish it was. And I pull up and back with it. So I'm really up on my sit bone. It helps so that I'm not rolling forward. And then I'm gonna take the other side, I'm gonna take this heel and I'm gonna put it around past the front knee, or the knee in front of it. Then if you want to, some people just holding here and having to try and be upright, if they're tight enough in the back or the glute, is enough to feel it, right? Or you have someone like Angie who's sitting there almost completely crisscrossed right now, relaxed in the position, right? She might take that arm coming around using the other hand and push herself upright. So she's trying to sit really tall and turn through. And she might even walk that foot, again, I can't really do it, further back past her hip and really try and sit and rock around it, okay? Other option is she could reach around, and instead of just trying to hold herself up, she could reach around and pull it tight and in. So everyone's got a little bit different take on what they need or what they feel for tension. But we're gonna hang out here for about a minute, starting now. And again, you can pull across, you can pull in, you can sit upright, you can turn, you can bring that foot closer or this foot closer. It's kind of whatever your limitations are, or whatever you're maybe really flexible in, a way that you can intensify your stretch. So figure that out for each individual person. A lot of times too, when I have all this extra time to sit and think, because normally I'm not talking through the stretch, I'll take a deep breath in and focus on each breath. And every time I breathe out, I intensify somehow. I either twist a little harder or I pull in a little tighter as my air goes all the way out. So that might help you for the second half of this. We're staying in it just a bit longer than is comfortable or we like. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Unless you're Angie and then you're just like born to do this. Just kidding. She's not born. She worked really freaking hard as a dancer growing up. So I'm sure she put in a lot of years and deserves the flexibility. But she's also being careful, I'm sure, not to overstretch things just because she's flexible. Go ahead and carefully come out of it and let's switch to the other side. So again, the start of this stretch is to take her foot, or your foot, not Angie's foot, leave her foot alone. Take your foot, put it towards your groin, other side, adductor, whatever you can accomplish with your range of motion. And then again, I like to take my hand, scoop under some of the extra tissue in my glutes so I can really be up on my sit bone instead of rounding backwards like this. I push it up as almost a bolster, okay? I take this other side and I reach it, so you guys can see, across in front of the other foot. Now you might notice, especially for me, for example, I can't be as upright on that foot. Something about my hip tension or whatever. Everyone's a little different, but pull it into where you can. You can pull towards yourself. This side might feel different. This side, maybe you're holding and pulling in. Maybe this side, if you didn't, maybe you're twisting on this one to get the stretch. Everybody's a little different. Play around with it. Holding here for a minute. We got another 45 seconds left from when I started talking about it. And again, maybe you work that breath. With each one out, you intensify somehow. I appreciate all you guys that get on to work with me while I'm actually doing it, because I know it's not as fun as if you put on some music in the background and just watch somebody and mimic someone. You're actually getting talked to this whole time and learning, but it's good for a resource for later. So I appreciate you guys being on here because it gives me feedback and people to see, so I know if there's any downfalls or certain questions that people struggle. Go ahead and relax. Okay, coming out of it. All right, the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna return to something similar to that first stretch we did. I think it's called like lizard stretch or something when you're in yoga, or I'm not sure, one of those other ones. But it's very similar to the one we were doing before, where we're upright like this, but then you're gonna sink down into it. And this one, I might ask you, Angie, especially if you're able to do this, people are able to come down with their elbows all the way to the floor and fold in. So you'll notice for me, I don't get all the way down there. I have to work pretty hard to relax. So depending on who you are, you might find that having a pillow or something to support you might be nice if you're really wanting to relax in this, right? So you might find that relaxing over a pillow is helpful. If you were at the gym, you might use a wall ball to like rest on, okay? Angie, can you, yeah, so Angie right there is on her forearms and she looks pretty relaxed. She's actually has her elbows touching the ground. She's letting her low back sink in through and parallel to that hip. Everybody's a little bit different on what they can do, but you're gonna hold it. Figure out what you can do. If you can only get to a bit of a bend and you don't get to really relax, but you're kind of holding yourself in, maybe that's just where you're at today. We're only doing them for a minute hold versus like a 2 to 3 minutes. So if you can't fully relax into it, don't worry today. But if you want to hold this longer on your own ever, again, grabbing a bolster or a pillow that you can kind of lean on or even prop up on so that you can relax more. would be something to do. So we're finishing off going a little deeper into what we started with in our first stretch by letting everything else come with it. And hopefully by throwing this at the end, you're able to get a little closer to that ground with your elbows. I know I do, than if you tried to do it at the beginning. About 10 more seconds, guys. Carefully come up out of it the same way that you got into it. So up like this and then move out. Good. And switch. We're going to do the other side. It's our last move of the day. And you'll probably find that one side is way different than the other, right? So some of you that may be able to get down there on one side, maybe you can't get all the way down on this side, and that's okay. But try and relax into it as much as you can. All right, guys, and carefully come up out of it. Perfect. So hit most of the big muscles in the hips today. You might feel like you want to go back into a little bit of those press-ups. You might find that doing some down dog into some up dog might feel nice for you right now. You might find doing some Cossack squats might feel nice right now. For me, I notice I can get a little deeper and I just don't feel the pull in the front. Everybody's a little different, but if you want to throw some of those in, go for it. I'm not going to make you stay on screen and go through whatever else you want, but I'd highly encourage it because you just stretched through all this stuff. It might feel nice and you're like, oh wow, I actually did get some good lengths to these bigger, tighter muscle groups that we don't always spend enough time stretching. So that was kind of the focus for today. So simple moves, ones you've all probably done before, but just putting a little more time and attention and some heat behind it. Is there any questions from anybody on screen right now? Nothing from Angie. Zeke's going through some Cossack stuff, which is good. Nothing from Danielle. Great. All right, guys. Well, then I'm going to end the recording. And then don't forget that we have class tonight that's online. And then we also have virtual happy hour, I believe, tomorrow at 6:30. So that's always fun to see everybody. And then the classes as well that have been going pretty consistently throughout all the weeks. So if you can't make it to class, work out, post about it, stay involved. I know we're getting like halfway through this whole closure thing and it's stressful, but keep up the good work. And thanks for everyone for joining me on mobility stuff.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah.